Now then, Tigers, how are we doing? I hope we're doing well. A respectable point was earned at the MKM as Hull City drew 0-0 against Coventry City in what was a very fair result, I would say. And I think most people would agree. And one thing which I will say is that we are one of two teams to have not conceded against Coventry City over the two games we've played in the Championship this season. So, how good are we? I said from the Oxford United game, an improvement was needed in our performance, and the improvement was there. It was so much better. The starting lineup, especially I feel in the midfield, is where the most improvement was. I'm just going to have to say it straight away. Toby Collyer was unreal. Just on the ball, he was brilliant. So confident when he was dribbling, when he was passing. Defending was so good. And a partnership with him and Amir Hatzimetovic is just brilliant. I mean, they're both quite quick and pacey players compared to the Oxford game. You had Matt Crooks and John Lundstrom, two slow players who just really can't seem to track back quick enough or sometimes get up the pitch quick enough. Collyer and Amir just need to be in the starting lineup in the midfield for the rest of the season, and I think we should be fine. I would be absolutely happy with that. To me, though, it wasn't just the midfield that were the most impressive. The defence, man, honestly. Semi Ajayi had Haji Wright in his back pocket the entire match. Never really had a proper opportunity. Egan was just as good defensively. It was just a great defensive performance. One thing I will say is that, I mean, both keepers, both Ivo Pandur and former Hull keeper Carl Rushworth, weren't really busy in terms of saving any shots. It was just more, we were kind of coming close towards the goal, but we just couldn't really find a proper end product to try and give the goalkeeper something to challenge for. I think if you're watching the game on TV, you would have probably thought, oh, this is a dead, dull, boring game. You know, there hasn't been a great chance. It's a close game, but it's not a surprise that it's a 0-0. Whereas if you were at the match, honestly, the atmosphere is what really did make it entertaining. And I feel like it was one of them games really where you couldn't look away. You had to keep watching. You had to keep focusing on what was going on, because it was almost like it was kind of end-to-end stuff when maybe say we'd give the ball away from trying to make a long ball. Coventry would then eventually go forward, and then after a while we'd then win the ball. We'd try and go forward instead of hoofing it long, which we really shouldn't have done, to be honest, in this match. A 0-0 draw is good. Obviously, a win would be better, but this is a respectable draw, and I think we should be happy with this result, in my opinion, against basically promotion-bound Coventry, who, let's be real, do deserve to get promotion to the Premier League, especially after the season they've had. They definitely deserve to come out as champions of the Championship, and they will do. I mean, they're 4 points away from securing that, so, yeah, fair play to your Sky Blues. What I will say as well is I'd argue that Hull were maybe just the better side. It was a rather equal game, but I do think, for instance, if Hull had maybe won 1-0, it would have been a more deserving win for Hull than, let's say, if Coventry had scored to make it 1-0 and won the game 1-0, then it wouldn't have been as deserved, in my opinion. It may seem biased, but generally I think that's what a lot of people would think, and I'm not just pointing out that as to Hull fans, but I guess maybe to Coventry fans as well. The closest chance that I can really think of was, I mean, Gelhardt had a great strike from about roughly 25 yards out, I want to say, outside the box, tried to find the near post in the top corner, came quite close, and then the only real other close opportunity we had was John Egan, who shot towards goal after, I think, Rushworth clattered into someone. The referee didn't give a foul. Play continued. The ball fell to Egan. He did shoot. It's a great block from Kitching, and I think if he wasn't there, that would have been 1-0 to Hull, and it could have been a completely different game. But we take the point, we move on. Now, the interesting thing for this video is, what am I going to give the ratings to the following players after a hard-earned point? We're going to obviously start off in goal with Ivo Pandur. His distribution was brilliant in this game. Much better than it has been previously. A bit similar with Dylan Phillips, who's actually releasing the ball earlier when he was either pass it to the centre halves or getting it up the pitch, and even his long balls up the pitch were actually going well. They were firing in towards Tree, they were firing in towards McBurney, even to Gelhardt sometimes. It was really good to see from Pandur. Must have trained a lot of his kicking through maybe his international duty with Croatia. Never really was that busy in goal apart from coming out of his line to try and collect balls and claim balls. He did make one save, which was a pretty simple stop, but hey, nonetheless, he had to make sure that ball was not going in the back of the net. I think for Pandur, you've simply just got to give him a 7. I think that's justified. Really, not really busy in goal, didn't do anything wrong, there was no mistakes from him. He only had like one maybe poor goal kick out of the God knows how many he had. A 7 for Pandur, I think, is about right. Cody Drame, right back. I think he was great once again in this match. I think there was a couple of times where his decision making I thought was a bit off. There was sometimes where he was dribbling with the ball, kind of going into no man's land really. Where he didn't need to do that. He could have just released it, maybe passed the ball down the line or in the midfield. I think there was a throw-in he had at one point in the game where he just threw it to absolutely no one and just gave it straight to a Coventry player. But that's the only criticism I'm going to give him, because he did have a good game. He had a great game. And it's one of them really where, he never really gave Mason Clark a chance down that left-hand side. Not very much anyway. So you have to give credit for that where it's due. On the ball, he was great for the majority of the time. There was a few times where he was trying to kind of switch the ball across the pitch, which sometimes did work, but didn't always. I'm really dabbling to give him a 7 or a 7.5. I might be a bit harsh on this one. I am going to give him a 7. I think there were just other defenders that did a better job, which I will explain in a second. Not saying Drame had a bad game. I think it was just one of them where the centre halves were really the main players that did a better job. But Drame, great game. I'm going to give him a 7. John Egan and Semi Ajayi. Both of these guys I'm going to talk about at the same time, and I'm going to give the same rating because these lot were unbelievable. Semi Ajayi and John Egan, whenever Haji Wright looked to try and get onto the ball or tried to win the ball, he was in their back pockets throughout the entire game. I think Ellis Sims was slightly more challenging, but even he really couldn't find a particular opportunity on goal. Ajayi and Egan were just great, solid defensively. They were brilliant. On the ball, they weren't too bad as well. I think I was kind of annoyed sometimes when they did try and play it long, and it was just one of them where the ball was never going to reach. For instance, Egan tries to play it out to maybe Gelhardt or tries to switch it to Liam Miller. It doesn't work, and Ajayi did the same, and it was a bit frustrating the way we gave the ball away in that kind of scenario where we could have just played it on the floor and kind of gradually worked our way up the pitch. Defensively, they were just brilliant, and you have to give so much credit for that. So, both of them, I'm going to give a 7.5. They did absolutely brilliant. They're very close to getting an 8, but I feel like for this game, you can't give anyone more than an 8 in this match. And I feel like there has to be one player. And I think most of you know who I'm going to pick for that. So, yeah, Ajayi, Egan, very good performance, get a 7.5. I did think Charlie Hughes would start this game, but he didn't. And it just goes to show we can do just as good without Charlie Hughes as we can with him. Louis Coyle. This one's an interesting one because he did kind of struggle against Sakamoto. Sakamoto, in my opinion, was the best attacking player for Coventry, was the one that looked like the most threatening. Coyle was really struggling a few times when he was dribbling the ball. Kind of, I wouldn't say easy got past him, but it was quite convincing that Coyle was never going to catch up to him if he was going to run down the line with pace. But in all fairness, he wasn't too bad defensively. I think there was a couple of times where when he did try and clear the ball, it wasn't really that good, to be honest. He just he kind of dribbled the ball around at one point in the box, then went back out and then just cleared out for a throw, where I think he could have played it to a midfielder or just simply hoofed it up the pitch towards McBurney maybe. Similar to Drame, he was giving a lot of support to the winger, Liam Miller, which was good to see. He's bound to make those overlapping runs. I'm going to give him a 7. I think maybe he could dabble with a 6.5 at a stretch, but I'm going to say 7 because at the end of the day, the defence kept clean sheet and you have to credit him for that. Midfield, well, I am gonna be very. Some may think I might be generous, some think I may be right, but here's what I'm gonna go with. Amir Hatzimetovic, I'm gonna start off with first, because I think he was almost just as good as Toby Collier. Really is the perfect player to have in this type of game where he can just go forward with the ball. He's a lot faster than I think quite a few people think. There was a point where he was fouled. He was almost kind of going to be through on goal, but I can't remember which player it was, kind of dragged his shirt, pulled him down. It was a blatant foul, yellow card. Everyone was hoping it was going to be a red. Amir Hatzimetovic was great though. On the ball, he was brilliant. Defensively, when he was making tackles, he was great. I'm going to give him a 7.5. He really does deserve that, to be honest, because he had a great game against Coventry. He really did show how good of a player he is in the Championship. And you know, I really love to see the progression that Amir's made, because at the start of the season, the way he's worked his way up, he started off a bit shy, not putting in so much great performances, and gradually as the season's gone on, he's got so much better, and it's so good to see. And you know what? I'm absolutely happy for him that he's going to be going to the World Cup. Touch wood that he doesn't get injured. The other midfielder, Toby Collier, for me, there is only one rating you could give him. That's an 8. He was the best player on that pitch. As I said before, his dribbling was great. On the ball, he was brilliant with his passing. Defensively, he was doing great. He was always making sure that he was going to be in the midfield, in the middle, when, let's say, Coventry on the ball with the defenders, and Amir was kind of marking one of the players, making sure he's going to get ready to press a player that would maybe on the ball. And Collyer was there marking someone else and just getting ready, of course, that if someone wants to come up the pitch, he's there to make a tackle. He was brilliant. All game, he was brilliant. Obviously, he did have to get taken off in the, I think it was the 73rd minute, if I'm not mistaken, just because we know he's not fully fit. He's been dealing with injuries almost all season. I know how we're kind of always frustrated that with injuries have not gone our way, especially with Regan Slater being out for the rest of this season. But Collyer, in my opinion, is a great replacement to have over Slater, and him and Amir Hatzimetovic in the midfield. Oh, it's the chef's kiss. Really good performance from Collyer. I hope he's going to start the remaining games because he's just done such a good job. He deserves a rating of 8. Moving on to the right wing where Joe Gelhardt started, and I have to say, it was a very mixed performance from Gelhardt. He was, at times when he was on the ball, he was kind of cheaply giving it away, could have done better with the ball. Wasn't his best game, that's for sure. It's just one of them, really. He's kind of not quite got his mojo back yet from, I guess, from the Wrexham game, I would argue. Obviously, he did create some good moments in this match. I mean, as I said before, he had that really close opportunity outside the box where he just missed the top corner, basically. He also had a header which was on target. It was never a header that he was going to score. I think the cross just didn't have enough pace from Liam Miller, and Gelhardt was just never going to have enough power to head it in the goal. It was a very easy stop for the keeper. I have to give him a 7. I have to give him a 7. You can't really give him much more because there were a couple of mistakes he made in terms of giving the ball away. But wasn't a bad player on that pitch. So, yeah, I'm just hoping maybe we can see a slightly better version. A version where, when we didn't have McBurney because we lost him through injury, that Gelhardt, that's what I'm missing at the moment. The one that's really been making the goal involvements. Hopefully we can get him back for the next few games. Moving on to Cam, where it was Tree who started. If I'm being honest, I really don't think he had a great game. I think he's definitely had better matches. On the ball, he wasn't always the best. Sometimes when he was defending and making tackles, he wasn't too bad. Just, I don't know if he had effects from the Oxford match. I don't know if that was the case where he didn't have the fitness for it. When he was on the ball, just couldn't really control it very well sometimes. And, yeah, I think there was some times where, obviously, you had McBurney who was going to be lurking around in an offside position because he's a striker and he's going to then eventually get onside and then make a run. And Tree kind of did the same, but obviously he was just a bit slow and just didn't get onside quick enough sometimes, where we could have played a really nice through ball through to someone. I'm going to give Matt Crooks a 6.5. Some of you may think that's harsh, but I think we've seen better games from Tree. And I'm just hoping for the next game against Sheffield United, he's going to do a better job. Moving on to the left wing, we had Liam Miller. I did think he would start. He was the kind of player you needed to start in this type of game. And I think out of the attack, definitely the best player. He really was the one that showed a lot of attacking promise, especially down that left-hand side, of course. And the thing is with Miller is, the only downside to me is he doesn't really have a left foot. If he had a left foot, he would be such a more dangerous player and hard to kind of predict in terms of if he's going to cut inside, play Coyle, who's making an overlapping run, maybe cutting back out to put a cross on his left foot. Can't remember if he had exactly a shot on goal, but he was definitely the one that was trying to create chances for other players. I want to give him a 7.5 because he did do a pretty good job, but I think because we didn't really score, and I guess there wasn't really any proper end product or a really good chance that he had set up, I think you've got to give him a 7. I would love to give Liam Miller 7.5 in this match, but I'm just going to give him a 7. He deserves at least a 7. And up front, on McBurney, not much to say about him really. I mean, to be fair, both strikers for Cov and Hull were quiet in this match, and McBurney just never really had an opportunity, to be honest. He was a bit quiet. Every now and again he'd be on the ball, kind of, trying to lay it off to someone before trying to eventually go up the pitch as Hull were moving forward. He had an alright performance, but there was just nothing really from him, which isn't really his fault at a stretch, because, I mean, there were a few crosses where, I mean, McBurney was trying to get ahead onto the ball and try and maybe, obviously, head it towards goal and, again, just try and score, which no one could really do, to be honest, because there just wasn't a big enough chance for that to happen. I'm going to just have to give him a 6.5, simply because I don't think there was a proper good shot that he had towards goal. But listen, nonetheless, it's nothing to really be ashamed about. I'm hoping that in the next game he can perform well against his former club and end this goal drought. As for the subs, we did have John Lundstrom who came on the pitch, Lewis Kumas, Mo Bloomy and Kyle Joseph. I do believe Bloomy and Kumas were good as substitutions. They did try and give something on the attack for Hull in the last 15 minutes of the game. Bloomy did have a shot, I remember, which more or less was straight at the goalkeeper. Never really tested Rushworth. Kumas was great in terms of bringing the ball forward when we were trying to go on the counter-attack, when he had space down that left-hand side to run into. He's just one of them players, you just can't quite take on a man. Lundstrom wasn't too bad when he came on the pitch. I did expect a bit better from him in a few occasions, but wasn't too bad. And then when Kyle Joseph came on, again, could have been better. I think there was a moment where Joseph was dribbling with the ball and he could have just released it earlier, passing it to anyone, but he did end up just giving the ball away very cheapishly, which I was a bit annoyed with. So overall, the subs, if I just had to give a rating as a roundup for them all, I would just say a 6.5 is what I'll go with. Now, the time we're recording, it is a Tuesday in the afternoon, and it's the same day where Southampton and Wrexham take on each other in what is a very important fixture to watch, not only for just the playoffs in general, but for Hull City, because I want to see who's going to be kind of gaining towards them. After that result against Coventry, we are 5 points away from 7th place, which is Southampton, so it's not really a bad point to take on board. We are 4 points away from the top two, but I don't want to focus on the top two, mainly because of the fact that Ipswich are now 2nd place with a better goal difference, and they also have 2 games in hand. I think Ipswich are very likely getting promoted this season, especially the form that they are currently in. But as for Hull, it's not really a bad place to be in. It's just having to wait what the result is for Southampton Wrexham to kind of understand what sort of position we're going to be in as we go to the last 5 games in the season. Derby are 5 points away from Hull, so they're still in the playoff battle. Next game against Sheffield United, it's going to be an interesting one. They're a very inconsistent team in terms of the form. They haven't been great recently. It's always going to be a tough trip to Bramall Lane, but if we can get something, a win at that ground is always great for Hull. Last season it was great and it helped us in our relegation battle, but hopefully in the opposite end, in our playoff battle, we can try and get 3 points at Bramall Lane. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out my socials in the link in the description, especially the TikTok and my Twitter. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, the Tigers!